welcome to the Week 10 Ether Diver Patch Week Challenge. This week we are introducing Strega to the family. If you watched my initial, here's everything that I own and here's what we'll be using over the course of this, you will recall that I didn't have Strega. But now I do. My birthday has happened since the last video, and I got a gift card for Detroit Modular. Shout out to Detroit Modular. It's not sponsored in any way. I just like to spend my money there because they're cool and they ship fast and they're just generally awesome. Anyway, got a gift card for them and looked on there and a couple days after my birthday and saw that there was an open box Strega for $509, which seemed like a good deal to me, and I picked it up. So here we are. Let's join the family. And naturally, you bring something new home, and that's what you're going to patch this week. It's just how it works. We'll get back to the drum sounds at some point. I got a whole bunch of sound design stuff coming up in April, and we might do some more drums then, and we might do some before then too. Okay, with that out of the way, let's do a real quick overview of the Strega. For those of you who are deeply into modular synth stuff, I know this is going to be a little redundant, although maybe not. Maybe you've never really looked at how it's put together or what it is. But I do know that at least some of the people that wanted to follow this series are pretty new to this whole thing and might not be familiar with this at all. So I don't want to assume anything. This is a make noise synthesizer. It was created in conjunction, in collaboration with a musician who goes by the name of Alessandro Cortini. He is a frequent collaborator of Trent Reznor, Nine Inch Nails, Trent Reznor. He's part of Nine Inch Nails. He also does solo stuff, which is excellent stuff, highly recommended. And he was already sort of jiving with the make noise aesthetic, but there was something he wanted to exist and it didn't exist, and it's this, and they helped him make it exist. And what this is, it's a... They call it an echo synthesizer, and I guess that's as good of a name as any. It's a synth. It's also an effects unit. We opened up with this playing, and we're going to close on it playing, so you already know what it sounds like. We're doing things a little differently, mixing it up a little bit. So we'll get back to the sounds of it in a second, but yeah, the architecture. Okay, so it's easiest to understand this as just sort of it's a synthesizer with an external input and a slightly unconventional signal flow. So on the left-hand side over here, we'll start here. This is the tonic. That's your pitch. So this is your oscillator, okay? And then you can decide what tones get added, and this is some sort of wave shaper or wave folder. Goes from complex to simple to complex, is my understanding. This is not a full demonstration of the Strega, so I don't need to really get into the whole, what every little thing sounds like, but just what they do. So this basically, yeah, the oscillator. This changes the sound of the oscillator from a more complex, simpler, from a simpler, less harmonics sound to a more complex, more harmonic sound. Okay, and then over here, and going a little bit out of order, but so this is a primary sound maker. Pitch is controlled, volt per octave here, just like a normal synthesizer. This is actually the VCA is what this is over here, and the controls for the VCA, which is to say the amplitude, the loudness of this activation. As you open this up, the synth starts to sound. If I had this plugged into speakers right now, you could hear it as I did that. You can see that light comes on. These lights are so bright you actually can't see these lights too well, but there's little red lights there. You can see them coming on. And you might just be able to hear that in my headphones. This means it's pretty loud. Okay. Yep, so that's VCA. Determines the loudness. This is your external N over here that I mentioned. Comes in here. How loud is the synth going to be? Pitch. Okay, now this is where it gets a little weird. I mean, admittedly, putting the VCA at the beginning is, you could say it's weird, but I mean, really, it's just the controls, really. The VCA is at the end, of course, because that's where VCAs are. But or in this case, it's actually, I think it is between the tonic, between the oscillator and the delay. But that's neither here nor there. Okay, next stage is the delay, and this is I believe it's an actual PT 2399 chip, and not a chip that's like that. I think it's an actual PT 2399. It's a dirty, cheap, frankly, kind of shitty sounding delay, and I mean that in the best possible way. I'm a big fan of the PT 2399 delay. Another piece of semi-modular gear I have is this Coma Field Kit FX, and it's got a PT 2399 delay. And we'll probably team these up at some point. And that's actually my first piece of semi-modular gear, and I use that all the time. I used to, for a while, it was permanently patched to the Mini Brute 2S as its dedicated effects unit. So I'm a big fan of the PT 2399 delay. So when I say it's really shitty sounding, I understand that I mean that. As that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be shitty sounding. I mean, it's supposed to be used for karaoke, but when people use it in a professional audio context, they're doing it to get the weird, degraded, clock noisy, mess that it becomes when you push it to, past its karaoke intended limits. So this is the controls for the delay here. You have decay, which is feedback, I believe, and absorb, which has to do with the way it interacts with the filter. It's not a normal delay control. But yeah, it has to do with the way how much is something like a dampening effect from the filter. I think it's more dampened this way and less dampened this way. I don't know. It's a mysterious synthesizer, even to someone who knows how synthesizers work. So if you're a little lost, don't feel bad. And then that goes into a filter. That's the filter. Here's the filter control here. Closed filter, open filter. It's just it's a low pass filter. If it's resonant, the resonance is fixed or whatever. It's not. There's no way to control it. It's either fixed or it's mysteriously controlled behind. But it doesn't sound super resonant. But there might be some resonance dialed into it, built into it. Doesn't really matter. Again, sounds good. And yeah, you're heard all this at the end. And you'll hear it all at the beginning again. And then that goes out to the output. And the only other thing really to talk about here is the this control here. There are a few more things, but we can talk about them as they come up. This is the agitator. It's a function generator. Think of it as a highly controllable LFO slash. You know what a function generator is if you've been following around, because I explained it in week before. But this determines the speed from very slow, I think it's set to like a minute when this is fully counterclockwise, up to, you can see it's kind of slow, moderately, medium, and then moderately fast. Now it's starting to be, looks like a solid line. You can't even really tell it's lit. That's because it's just going so fast. And that's a hint to what's going on with this patch if you're familiar with some of this stuff. So that's the basics of the Strega. Like I said, there are a million videos on what the Strega is and what it does, and that really break down its functions much more thoroughly than, maybe not than I could do that, but than I intend to do. So if you want one of those, I'll look in the description. I'll pick my favorite and stick it in the description for you, because that's the kind of guy I am. And then otherwise, let's just get on to the patch. This is actually very simple. This is going to be the least time of this. It's a very simple patch, but and of course I've screwed up some of the settings as I was on, but I think they're close enough, more or less. I didn't mess with too much. But I will say this, that I've had this for 2 days. This is the third day, and I played with it for about 4 hours each of the first 2 days, and I would not be surprised to play with it for 4 hours tonight. I've done actually about half a dozen or 10 patches on it already, including running various different things through it. I've run microphone, I got actually something planned with that. That's going to be cool. Might do that next week. But first, I wanted to talk about this and get this out of the way before I started doing that weird stuff. I ran the pendulum through it. That was pretty wild, as I had hoped. But again, like maybe a little. I thought it was just a little much to like, especially for people who aren't familiar with this, to just try and figure out what the hell's going on between the two of them. I patched it into put a microphone in. I played a little broken toy ukulele through it. That was fun. Um, and yep, I haven't put any drum machines in yet. That's coming up soon, possibly next. That might be what we do next week, actually, is make some drum sounds by running them through Strega, depending on if my off-the-book experiments are cool. But what I ended up on here is this little sequenced slashed playable patch. You can see I've brought in the O control for control duties for clocking. And the and then I just got a tiny little bit of self patching over here. So let's go into what exactly is going on here. So we have the pitch control, the top row, traditionally assigned to pitch, although not necessarily, going to the volt per octave. So yes, that is what it's doing. It's controlling the pitch of the patch. And then we have the gate, the variable gate, very strength gate, going into the activation. And it's turned all the way up. And so what it's doing is when you play the key, or when the sequence plays the key, it will then trigger the gate and open up the thing. So when the sequence is playing, then you can hear that. Yep, that's it for week 10. I'm going to give you another 30 or 40 seconds here on the outro of some Strega tones, Strega music, so you can kind of enjoy a little more of this patch. Hope to see you next week. Thanks.